Okay, we are back. Let's start the next case. This is number 28. I'm not sure what the 31st is, though. For Whom the Bell Tolls. Off the Ernest Hemingway novel. If there's one thing you learned since following Amon Bas to medieval Mongolia, Matthew, it's that the Ptolemies will stop at nothing to preserve their reign in 2029. After he thwarted Amon's plans to seize the age of sail trade routes, he jumped back here to alter the balance of power in Asia. Our time-traveling nemesis is now arming the Mongolians with 18th century weapons, manipulating Ogadai Khan into igniting a war with China. Amon plans to destroy the Chinese dynasties before they become a superpower and rival to the Ptolemies. Kai and Penelope are monitoring Amon's activities with Ogadai's army, using Astro to send us regular reports. The rest of us, meanwhile, have been tasked with finding Ogadai Khan's daughter, who's been kidnapped by the Chinese. Returning Princess Torgoljin, who's my direct ancestor to the Khan, could be the only way to prevent a conflict between Mongolia and China. Torgoljin is being held captive in the city of Zhangyang. We must go to China and rescue her. Now that we're in Zhangyang, Matthew, where will we find Princess Torgoljin? Ogadai Khan's general told us to seek out the Chinese emperor. Surely the supreme leader of the Song dynasty will know something. We'll probably find the emperor at his palace. Excuse me, but are you seeking an audience with His Majesty? Then fortune is smiling on you. The emperor will attend a performance today at the Opera House. You'll find him there. Thank you, kind sir. Come, Matthew, let's head to the Opera House. Of course, as you guys can tell, I did cut my hair again just this past weekend. Oh my. Got it. Faded fan. Look, Matthew, there's a dead man on the floor. I don't think it's the Emperor, thank goodness, but judging by that head wound, this was murder. Someone smashed this guy's skull with that bell. It's covered in blood. That's got to be our murder weapon. Let's send it to Janice with the body. And look, I found a portrait of Princess Torgoljin in the victim's pocket. There are Chinese characters written on it. I'll run them through the translation matrix. And it says, "Don't let anyone find her." Wait, Matthew, could this man be involved with Princess Torgoljin's kidnapping? If that's the case, finding his killer might help us find the princess. And that faded fan could be our first clue. These fans were used by Chinese opera singers. If we can find out who this belongs to, we may have a witness. Who are you, and why aren't you bowing before your emperor? Jin Bingsu has the right idea, lying prostrate on the floor. Our apologies, Your Majesty, but I'm afraid that man's dead. Dead? Well, that's unfortunate. You seem to know this man, Your Majesty. Could we ask you some questions? Very well, but do hurry. The opera will begin soon. Emperor Lizong. And I need to get some stars, so sit tight, everybody. Okay, I got myself 6 stars. Let's examine the faded fan first. Got it. If my suspicions are correct, Matthew, there could be a name among these Chinese characters. Any minute now, and yes, these characters here are named. The English translation is Lian Wei. If Lian Wei was around at the time of the murder, she might have important information. Where's the audience? The show's meant to start soon. I'm afraid the opera will have to wait. Jin Bingzhu's been murdered. Murder? Oh, how awful. Have you seen anything out of the ordinary at the opera house today? No. Jin Bingzhu was an honorable benefactor of the opera house, and he'd often come in early to watch rehearsals. But I've been backstage getting ready for a performance of The Legend of Wen Long. Jin Bingzhu did so much for us. I can't believe he's gone. Now let's talk to Emperor Lizong. Now what's the meaning of this? Why is Jin Bingzhu lying dead on the floor? That's what we're trying to determine, Your Majesty. You said you know this man? Jin Bingzhu is a prominent landowner. Many of the properties surrounding Zhang Yang are his. We believe Jin Bingzhu was involved in the kidnapping of the Mongolian princess. Do you recognize this woman? Murder, kidnapping, this is very bothersome. I'm just here for the show. These tedious affairs are dealt with by my first minister. You'll find him on the armory field inspecting our arsenal. Now when will the opera start? I want to drink my rice wine and see a show. Thank you for your help, Your Majesty. We'll seek an audience with your first minister on the armory field. Was not a clue. Oh man, that was awful. Look at those cannons, Matthew. The Chinese are armed to the teeth. If Ogadai Khan does invade, the conflict will be devastating. There's no sign of the First Minister, but if he knows something about the victim's apparent role... kidnapping. We must find him. There may be something out here that'll help us find him. That badge with a golden bird on it, for instance. While the sister wasn't formalized until the Ming Dynasty, the Chinese used badges like these, called Mandarin squares, as rank insignias for civil officers. Let's run that image through our historical database. Perhaps this badge belongs to the First Minister. And wait, that Jin Bingzhu's bag, it has his name on it. What are the odds we find anything belonging to the victim out here? Searching through that might shed some light on the murder. We still have no idea how Jin Bingzhu is connected to Torgal Jin's kidnapping, Matthew, but these clues could give us more information. Just a moment, folks. Alright, I got a few more stars, so I'm pretty sure that'll be enough to get through this. Matthew, this Mandarin square features a golden pheasant, which the database explains designates the highest ranking civil officer, like a first minister. And according to the records, Emperor Lizong's first minister is named Shi Miyuan. Emperor Lizong quickly dismissed Torgal Jin's kidnapping and Jin Bingzhu's murder. Let's hope Shi Miyuan will be more helpful. You there! You're not supposed to be on the cannon field. First Minister, we've been authorized to speak with you by the Emperor himself. Mongolia's leader, Ogadai Khan, has asked us to find his daughter, who was kidnapped by the Chinese. And we believe we found her kidnapper, a certain Jin Bingzhu, but he was murdered in the Opera House. We realize this is a delicate matter, but we hope you can help. The Khan sent you? Good. You can tell him we have his daughter, and if he wants to see her alive again, he'll call off his army. So you kidnapped Princess Torgal Jin. What about Jin Bingzhu? I paid Bingzhu to keep the princess locked up in Zhangyang after my soldiers had seized her. And where was he keeping her? I'm not telling you that, but she's safe for the moment, and as long as the Khan doesn't do anything rash, she won't be harmed. Wow, I didn't even have to move my mouse after all. Now that you've unlocked the victim's bag, Matthew, let's look inside. Thing to do, and then I can call it a night. There's something written inside the victim's bag, Matthew. Penelope's in Mongolia with Kai, so let's have Orlando translate this text. That'll do. 3 hours, and I'll see you guys when these two are finished. So for now, this is Matthew. See you soon. And we've returned. Let's get the results of the autopsy first. It sure makes my job easier when you send me the murder weapon and the victim's body at the same time, Matthew. That bell comes from a bayanzong, a musical instrument consisting of a series of bronze bells. So it must have been a weapon of convenience, something the killer grabbed inside the opera house. Exactly. Now, apart from the fatal wound, there was another important clue on the body. I found traces of dried jujube on the victim's wrists. These red fruits are a delicacy in China. However, there were also purple welts on the victim's wrists, indicating he was allergic to dried jujubes. Which means this fruit residue was left behind by the killer, probably during a struggle. This clue is cut and dried, Matthew. The killer eats jujubes. Now the Chinese message. If only Penelope were here, Matthew. My ancient Chinese is pretty rusty. I know keeping tabs on Amon's activities is important. I just hope she and Kai are alright. I'm worried too, but they're doing their job, as are we. Which brings me to that text Matthew found in the victim's bag. The text is a partial quote from Confucius, one of history's most influential philosophers. His ideas on politics, government, justice, and religion have shaped Chinese culture for centuries. The quote comes from the Analects of Confucius, a principal text of Confucianism. It reads, "Death and life have their appointed time." But then someone's added, "and your time has reached an end." Your time has reached an end? That sounds like a threat from the killer. Indeed, the killer was clearly foreshadowing the victim's murder, and they're obviously well versed in Confucian philosophy. And yet they've distorted Confucius' teachings to justify their crime. Let's add this to the killer's profile, Matthew. Our mission to rescue Princess Torgoljin is even more complicated than we thought, Matthew. We'd hardly arrived in Zhangyang to search for Ogadai Khan's daughter before discovering her captor has been murdered. But the victim wasn't working alone. Princess Torgoljin's kidnapping was orchestrated by the Chinese First Minister himself. Shi Muan told us to send word to the Khan that his daughter is a political hostage and that she won't be harmed if the Mongolians don't attack. Except Ogadai Khan is even more likely to invade China, knowing that his daughter is here. The First Minister's strategy will completely backfire. But I doubt we can convince Shi Muan of this, and the Emperor seems far more interested in entertainment than defending China against the Mongolian army. I don't know how we'll do it, but get out of my way. Princess Torgoljin, we've been sent to rescue you. Then don't just stand there, run! And we'll see you guys for Chapter 2. Do not go anywhere. Alright, let's start Chapter 2 of this case, For Whom the Bell Tolls. We last left off this. Then don't just stand there, run! The guard's right behind. Stop right there! Don't you move, young lady. Great, and I almost got away. Excuse us, sir, we're here on behalf of Emperor Lizong. That's right, the Emperor sent us to speak with this young lady about a murder. The Emperor sent you? Very well, you may speak with the prisoner, but I'll be watching. Thank goodness you're alright, Princess Torgoljin. Your father sent us to find you. Are you being treated well? They haven't harmed me, and the bed's actually quite comfortable. And I've always wanted to travel to China, but not like this. Enough pleasantries. What's this murder you wanted to talk about? The princess's captor, Jin Bingzhu, was murdered at the opera house earlier today. What? My master is dead? So someone killed that awful brute. Serves him right, if you ask me. Wait, my master was killed at the opera house? Then how did his riverboat get moved to the central canal? He doesn't let anyone touch that boat. That's a good question. Let's go, Matthew. We should search that boat. We'll return for you later, princess. We promise. Got it. I hated leaving Princess Torgaljian with that guard, Matthew, but her captor's killer could be after her too, so she's safer under lock and key. Now, if the victim moored his riverboat at the opera house, only the killer could have moved it after the murder. This cloth is identical to the victim's robes. It must have been torn during a struggle. We better collect those blood-stained beads. They might give us a new lead. And I agree, Matthew. Let's search under that pile of equipment while we're at it. Leave no stone unturned. Moment, folks. Okay. Now, collecting everything. Bloody beads. Now that you've collected those beads from the victim's torn clothing, Matthew, let's send them to Theo. This is 12 hours, but I do have my class tomorrow, so unfortunately, I'm going to have to put this off a little bit. Oh, spyglass. That's strange, Matthew. You'd expect to find a spyglass like this on one of those big sailing ships, not amongst a small riverboat's equipment. There's something engraved into the spyglass, but the characters are worn away. A closer look at whatever's written should tell us where this comes from. Okay. Now, let's see. S. Sanchez. This engraving is in Chinese, Matthew. It's written in the Roman alphabet, and it reads S. Sanchez. Wait, Santiago Sanchez is that explorer we met in Mongolia. As I recall, Santiago Sanchez was a suspect in the murder of a nomad chief. And now he's connected to another victim. Let's track down Senor Sanchez and find out what's going on. Matthew, China les de la bienvenida. I'm surprised to see you here. A surprise indeed, Senor Sanchez. What are you doing in Zhangyang? Exploring, of course. China's a wonderful country, especially their food. I can't get enough of these dried jujubes. You end up on Jin Bingzhu's riverboat. We found him murdered earlier today. What? Jin Bingzhu's been killed? Que tragedia. I met with Jin Bingzhu. He was a fascinating man. For centuries, a person's status in Chinese society has been dictated by their ancestry. But Bingzhu was a self-made man, attaining his wealth and influence by passing the civil exams. Education and intelligence are the new currency, radically altering China's power structure for future generations. So you know nothing about his murder, or about who might have wanted to harm him? I'd help you if I could, Matthew, but I know nothing. And we're going to be seeing you guys when this is over and done with. These bloody beads, that is. So for now, this is Matthew. I'll see you again soon. Okay, we are back. Let's get the results of the bloody beads. Darling, I heard you were confronted by Torgoljin's sentry. Are you alright? I'm fine, Theo, but the sooner we find Jin Bingzhu's killer, the sooner we can rescue your ancestor. Well, those beads go a long way towards doing that. The blood was a match for the victims, so there's no doubt they were left behind by the killer. But what are they? Was the killer wearing a necklace or a bracelet? Well, that's where my Asian heritage comes in handy. These beads aren't from jewelry, they're from a handheld abacus. An abacus? You mean those ancient counting frames? Exactly. They were used as a means of quickly making complex calculations. It wasn't uncommon for people to carry portable versions, like an archaic calculator. So the killer must have been carrying a small abacus at the time of the murder. Now that we know the killer uses an abacus, their days of freedom are numbered. We're on a roll now, Matthew. We know the victim was out on the cannon field, so let's take another look around. There we are. I'm not going to get the first star though. Or am I? Well, what do you know? I will. Look, Matthew, that decorative box has a tag addressed to the victim on it. It's the same name that was on Jin Bingzhu's bag. I imagine this is some sort of gift, so let's open it up and see what's inside. And look at that statue. It depicts Jin Bingzhu bowing low to the ground. Surely the victim wouldn't have made this figurine himself in such a humble posture. There's a liquid stain on the statue, Matthew. Let's collect a sample for analysis. Got it. Whatever the strange contraption is, Matthew, it was meant as a gift to the victim. Normally Kai would examine this device, but since he and Penelope are tailing Amon in Mongolia, let's send it to Orlando. All the way down at the bottom. Oh my goodness. I checked over there earlier, there was nothing, and then now there is? Alright Matthew, it'll be quicker if we put this liquid sample you collected off that statue of the victim under the microscope. Rice wine? That liquid you found on that statue of the victim is rice wine, Matthew. Wait, you're right. The Emperor said he enjoyed drinking white rice wine at the Opera House. Could this statue have anything to do with him? Let's seek another audience with His Majesty. Pardon our intrusion, Your Majesty, but we have some more questions about Jin Bingzhu's murder. Are you still investigating that? I would have thought you'd solved his murder by now. We're curious about the statue of the victim. Can you tell us what this means? That statue was a lesson in respect. Bingzhu had become increasingly irreverent, failing to show me the honor I deserve. To begin with, he wasn't paying his land taxes. I know how to use an abacus. I could see he was withholding what he owed me. And lately, he wasn't even bowing properly. I'm sorry, bowing properly? Exactly! Every time he'd enter the room, Jin Bingzhu would only bow twice, and his face never even touched the ground. A proper kowtow is 3 bows to the floor. That's why I had that statue made, to teach Bingzhu some humility. As the great Confucius said, without feelings of respect, what is there to distinguish men from beasts? And I'll see you guys when the strange device has run its course. See y'all soon. Okay, we have come back. Let's get the results of the strange device from Orlando. This device you sent me is marvelous, Matthew. Can you guess what it is? I have no idea, Orlando. That's why we sent it to you. It's a scale model replica of Su Song's astronomical clock, which he constructed in the city of Kaifeng in 1092. Timepieces as we know them didn't exist in this era, but Su Song, a Chinese polymath, came up with a device to measure time, powered by moving water and liquid mercury. Quite ingenious. Someone must have really liked our victim to present them with such an extravagant gift. Quite the opposite. I believe this gift is meant as a curse. You see, the Chinese words giving a clock sound exactly like the phrase for attending a funeral. It's therefore considered bad luck to give clocks or watches as gifts in Chinese culture. I'm impressed, Orlando. Without your insight, we might have missed an incredibly valuable clue. But who would send the victim such a harbinger of bad luck? Well, there are smears of makeup on the clock, the kind used by Chinese opera singers. Opera singers, like Lian Wei? But why would she curse the victim? She had nothing but praise for her honorable benefactor. Let's ask Lian Wei about this, Matthew. Ah, merchants, have you found Jin Bingju's killer yet? I'm so on edge I can't stop eating these dried jujubes. You say you're upset by Jin Bingju's murder, yet we found this gift you gave him. Did you bear ill will towards your benefactor? Like I explained before, Jin Bingju was very generous. I need my abacus to count all the money he gave to the opera house. But he thought his money meant he could run the place. Bingju started exerting his influence over artistic decisions, as if he knew anything about opera. Worse still, he was trying to get rid of me. He said I was too old, that we needed younger, more attractive singers. If Bingju had his way, today would have been my last performance. If Jin Bingju was determined to end your career, that certainly gives you motive to end his life. The thought had crossed my mind, but as Confucius says, when anger rises, think of the consequences. I didn't kill Bingju, but I'm not sad he's dead. You're in the running, though. Alright, Matthew, let's review the facts of this case. The good news is we found Princess Torgoljin, and she's safe for the moment. Unfortunately, she's still being held hostage. But we can't risk a rescue until her captor's killer is caught. For all we know, the princess is their next target. We've learned that Santiago Sanchez is in China too, and that he met with the victim. Surely that can't be a coincidence. Opera singer Lian Wei was unhappy that the victim was trying to ruin her career. And even the emperor had a bone to pick with the victim, claiming Jin Bingju wasn't showing him proper respect. With so many angry suspects, who could have... Matthew, duck! And we'll see you guys for Chapter 3. And we've returned. Let's start Chapter 3 of For Whom the Bell Tolls. Not the Ernest Hemingway novel. We last left off with us getting ambushed by cannons, like right there. Did someone just fire a cannon at us? First I get shot at with arrows in Mongolia, and now this! What's wrong with these medieval maniacs? You again? Can't you see I'm firing the cannons? Oh, Your Majesty, we hadn't realized it was you. You nearly hit us. I was curious to see how these cannons worked. I walk past them every day, you see, and I just wanted to try one out. Don't let us stop you, Your Majesty. Just allow Matthew and myself to leave. Come on, Matthew, let's do another search of the crime scene. There won't be any cannonballs flying around. Okay. Excuse me. I see the hand mirror, I don't see the scroll yet. Those gold ingots you found must be worth a fortune, Matthew. Who leaves something so valuable lying around? There's something engraved into these ingots. Let's dust them off and see what it says. Meanwhile, someone's locked that scroll pretty tight. I wonder what's written in there. And I agree. Let's reassemble those metal pieces while we're at it. Let's get to work, Matthew. The sooner we solve this murder, the quicker we can rescue Princess Torgoljin. Look, Matthew, that's a necklace of the silver tree in Karakorum. The only person in Xiangyang who has a similar tree necklace is Princess Torgoljin, which means she was on the crime scene. But she's been locked up the entire time. Could the princess have snuck out and murdered her captor in desperation? We better speak with her again. State your business. It's us, remember? We're investigating the murder of Jin Bingzhu. Right, you people. Very well, you may pass. Princess Torgoljin, we found your necklace in the opera house where Jin Bingzhu was killed. That ogre confiscated all of my belongings, including that necklace. Looks like he broke it too. So you're saying you weren't on the crime scene yourself? How could I be? I've been locked up for days with nothing to eat but these horrid dried jujubes. That's not entirely true. You did escape custody for a short time. I was only free for a matter of minutes. Bingzhu is a despicable man, and I'm glad someone killed him, but I had nothing to do with it. Telling the truth, there's only one black mark against her. Those ingots are engraved with Chinese characters, Matthew. Our translation matrix is really working overtime. Let's see now. The engraving reads, Shi Muan. These aren't enough. Pay me more. Someone was extorting the first minister? Wait, you're right. Shi Muan paid our victim to hold the princess captive. Maybe Bingzhu wasn't satisfied with this payment. Were these ingots meant for the victim, but he demanded more? We better talk to Shi Muan about this. This better be important. You're interrupting my meditations on the Analects of Confucius. We found evidence that Jin Bingzhu wasn't satisfied with what you paid him to hold Princess Torgoljin captive after you'd arranged for her kidnapping. Ah! That man had no business asking for more money. I paid him everything I owed him. I counted it out twice with my abacus. But then Bing Zhu discovered his hostage was a princess. Once he realized Torgoljin was the daughter of Ogedai Khan, he demanded I double his payment. And rather than pay him more, you decided to eliminate the problem? Of course not. I offered him one of my jujube fields instead, but apparently Bing Zhu was allergic. I tried reasoning with Bing Zhu, but I wasn't giving in to his demands. He was rewarded handsomely for what he did. There we go. Oh dear, Matthew. More Chinese characters. At least I'm starting to recognize the victim's name. It says Jin Bing Zhu right here. As for the rest of the scroll, we'll need Orlando to translate. 9 hours. I'll see you guys when this is done. Later tonight. So for now, this is Matthew. I'll see you soon. Well, I'm a little bit behind, so we're going to go ahead and do this. I'm getting the hang of this Chinese script, Matthew. Perhaps when Penelope returns, I can assist with her translating duties. I'm sure she'd appreciate that, but what can you tell us about that scroll? There are copies of Jin Bing Zhu's civil exams. Ah, right. Santiago Sanchez told us the victim had attained his status in society by passing those exams. Indeed. However, there are two versions here of his final exam, and when you compare the answers, one test is a significant improvement on the other. And I believe Senor Sanchez has reviewed these papers too. See here? Someone's written Bing Zhu is a fraud in Spanish. A fraud? I wonder what Santiago Sanchez means by that. Moment, folks. Never mind. Phone rang, but my grandma got it. Only one person can explain this, Matthew, and that's Senor Sanchez himself. You haven't seen my abacus, Matthew. I seem to have misplaced it. I'm afraid not. However, we did find copies of the victim's civil exams. What do you mean Jin Bing Zhu was a fraud? If you've seen his test, surely you understand. Jin Bing Zhu cheated on his civil exam. To keep the results of this exam impartial, participants' answers are copied by a scribe so that their handwriting cannot be recognized by the examiners. Bing Zhu's original answers were so poor, it's obvious he heard the scribe correct them in order to achieve a passing grade. Here I was, recording his story in my book of exploits, only to discover he was lying. Nobody takes me for a fool. Did you confront Bing Zhu about it? Claro, of course. Confucius, this country's own philosopher, says to see the right and not to do it is cowardice. But he just laughed, saying nobody would believe a foreigner like me. Despite his status in society, Matthew, Jin Bing Zhu wasn't exactly a model citizen. Santiago Sanchez, the Spanish explorer, discovered the victim attained his esteemed position by cheating on the civil exams. Meanwhile, not only did Bing Zhu agree to hold Princess Torgoljin hostage, he wanted more money from Shi Muan after discovering his prisoner was Ogedai Khan's daughter. Jin Bing Zhu had certainly ruffled some feathers, But who was pushed to the point of committing murder? If we want answers, Matthew, we're going to need more clues. So let's do another sweep of the killer's getaway vehicle, Jin Bingzhu's riverboat. I would have had it no matter what. There's a depiction of Confucius on the cover of this book, Matthew. Could this be the killer's copy of the Analects? No doubt about it, this circle passage inside the book is identical to the threat we found in the victim's bag. Let's get a sample of those threads. They could bring us one step closer to solving this mystery. And you think the killer might have thrown something into the river, Matthew? Then let's roll up our sleeves and fish through that seaweed. Let's rush these threads you collected off the killer's book to Theo, Matthew. If we're to have any hope of rescuing the princess, we need to work fast. Kind of almost feels like Mario in a way. You just hear rescue the princess. An abacus. Searching through that seaweed paid off, Matthew. You found a blood-stained abacus. And it's missing some beads, just like the ones we found before, which means this abacus was dumped by the killer. Let's send it to the lab. Probably going to speed these up a little later, but for now, this is Matthew. I'll see you again soon. Okay, we are back. Let's get the results of the threads. You've spoken to my my ancestor a few times now, Matthew. What's the princess like? Well, she's a strong woman, Theo. I can see where your feisty side comes from. Meanwhile, have you made any progress with those threads Matthew found on the killer's book? I have. Those threads are from a piece of clothing, but not just any material. I noticed the threads had multicolored dye, suggesting the material has a pattern. By laying the threads side by side under my microscope, a distinct fish pattern emerged, which the killer is obviously wearing. A fish pattern should be easy to spot, Matthew. All we have to do now is reel our killer in. Kind of starting to think that Kai might be based off of me. I'm not quite sure though. Just like how Ace was able to reach out to the others, to the people who made the game, be able to create Jack Archer. It's too bad that broken abacus was dumped in the river, Matthew. Almost all the forensic evidence was washed away. Almost? That means you totally found something, didn't you, honey? Well, there were some skin cells along the jagged edge. It probably scraped the killer's hands. From that, I constructed a DNA profile of the killer, and I've determined they have brown eyes. See? I knew you wouldn't let us down. So we're looking for a killer with brown eyes, Matthew. They'll have to look us in the eye and confess to their crime. Jin Bingju's killer has eluded us long enough, Matthew. Their time is up. It's not Emperor Lizong. I don't think it's Leon Wei. No, it's not. I'm trying to take my time here. Yep. Gotta be Shi Mi-wan. Got it. Shi Mi-wan, you were the one who murdered Jin Bingju. Nonsense! Jin Bingju did a good job keeping Princess Torgoljin prisoner. I had no reason to kill him. There's no point lying. We know you'd planned to kill Bingju ahead of time, sending him that threat. Bingju obviously didn't go down without a fight, seeing that you broke your abacus during a struggle, after which you fled the scene in Bingju's riverboat. And for what? Because he wanted more money? I didn't care about the money. I killed Bingju because he was jeopardizing the whole operation. He was going to take the princess back to Mongolia. Take her back? Why would he do that? He was going to pretend that he rescued the princess, claiming a hefty reward from Ogadai Khan, which I obviously couldn't allow him to do, so I needed to eliminate him. I knew he was accustomed to visiting the opera, so I waited for him to arrive this morning, then attacked him with that bell. You might have hidden your plans from the Emperor, but I think it's time we let him in on your secret. Very well, but you're wasting your time. The Emperor always defers to my judgment. This won't be any different. Yeah, right. What's this I hear, Shi Mi-wan? Not only did you orchestrate the kidnapping of Ogadai Khan's daughter without my permission, but now I find out this murder business is your doing. Yes, Your Majesty. It's part of a ploy to destabilize the Mongolians, well within my purview as First Minister. But murdering one of our own citizens? How does that destabilize the Mongolians? You must trust me, Your Majesty. I assure you I have everything in hand. You have overstepped your authority this time. Guards, take him away. But, Your Majesty, since when do you make decisions for yourself? Please, you're making a mistake. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, merchants. Shi Mi-wan will be punished to the full extent of my law. What about the princess, Your Majesty? Will you allow us to return her to her father? Heavens, no! While I object to Shi Mi-wan's methods, I cannot be seen as weak. I couldn't possibly just hand her over. I would be a laughingstock. No, Princess Torgoljin will remain here in Zhangyang. Now away with you. I grow tired of this bothersome business. Even though Jin Bingzhu's murder is solved, Matthew, I don't feel much like celebrating. Because although the Emperor objects to Shimi Yuan's kidnapping of Princess Torgoljin, he refuses to let her go in order to save face. It would make things a lot easier if the Emperor would allow us to return the princess to Ogadai Khan. But since when we let a little adversity stop us from doing our job? You're right. If the Emperor won't help us, then we must devise a plan to rescue Princess Torgoljin and bring her back to Mongolia ourselves. And we will do just that when we get to The Art of War 3.5 next time. See you soon. Okay, we have returned. Let's start The Art of War 3.5. I'm not going to be speeding these up. Thanks to you, Matthew, the man who orchestrated Princess Torgoljin's abduction is behind bars for murder. But the Emperor refuses to release her, claiming it would be a sign of weakness. Meanwhile, Amon's manipulating Ogadai Khan into annihilating the Chinese Empire before they become a significant rival to the Ptolemies. And Princess Torgoljin's kidnapping will play right into Amon's hands if Ogadai Khan blames the Chinese for it. With or without the Emperor, we must rescue the princess. Matthew, I think I know how we can do just that. And believe it or not, it involves that opera singer, Lian Wei. Lian Wei? How can she help us to rescue the princess? I'll fill you in at the opera house, Matthew. I'll suit up and wait for you there. Even if our rescue operation succeeds, we'll need to convince Ogadai Khan the kidnapping was orchestrated by one man alone and not the Chinese as a whole. We must find proof that Shimi Yuan masterminded Princess Torgoljin's abduction. The First Minister spent his time strategizing on the cannon field, Matthew. Maybe we'll find something there, unless you'd like to speak with Lian Wei first. Let's get to the cannon field first, since it's already there for us. Got it. Matthew, that diagram, that's the silver tree in Karakorum, where Princess Torgoljin was kidnapped. And the name Shimi Yuan is written on it. This could have something to do with his original plot to abduct the princess. There's more faded writing on the diagram. I'll grab your dusting brush so we can take a look. I had to pause because I had to go to the bathroom and I was waiting for that to load. But now, faded diagram. Got it. Matthew, since Orlando's busy hatching a plan to rescue the princess, we'll have to translate these characters ourselves, which might take a while. Okay, so this character goes here, and that one must be... So the text says, these pretzels are Making me thirsty? That can't be right, Matthew. Let me input those characters again. Got it. This text reads, Shi Miyuan, kidnap the princess and you'll be more powerful than the emperor. So kidnapping Princess Torgoljin wasn't Shi Miyuan's idea? Someone suggested it to him. Whoever it was might have left some forensic evidence on this diagram. So let's have Theo examine every square millimeter. With that terrible murder behind us, I can finally focus on tonight's performance. If there's anything I can do for you merchants, just ask. There is something you can help us with. A young lady is being held captive in Jiangyang, a prisoner of Jin Bingzhu. We're trying to rescue her. Bingzhu was holding someone hostage? That man was a true barbarian. But how could I be of use? I believe we can free the young woman by disguising her as an opera singer. I'm an expert tailor, so I can create the appropriate gown. However, makeup like yours is a genuine art, and we were hoping you could help us in that regard. I would be honored. With the right gown and makeup, nobody will recognize the young woman. I'll just need my makeup kit from the opera house. Leave that to us. We'll fetch your makeup kit. Perhaps you consider getting a makeover too, Matthew. It would suit you. Not in this case. It's already after 11 where I am. So am I going to be speeding this up? Not likely. I have my school tomorrow. And I don't really want to get too involved in this. I'll just wait until I get home. Flower and pop. Boom. Got it. The engravings on this locked case suggest it belongs to Lian Wei, Matthew. Let's open it up. T80. T80. Perfection, Matthew. Look at this marvelous makeup. Our plan just might work. Madame Lian can take this to Princess Torgoljin's quarters and begin her makeover. As you did, she can say she's there by order of the Emperor. Meanwhile, I'll create a suitable opera gown for the princess. Join me when I am finished. Six hours. I'll see you guys when both of these are finished. So for now, this is Matthew. I'll see you soon. We are back, and we're going to get the results of the diagram details. Matthew, I discovered something important about that diagram you found, and it wasn't what I was expecting. All of my standard forensic analyses came back negative. No fingerprints, no traces of latent substances. Then I noticed something strange about the paper itself. It felt synthetic, unlike the parchments or scrolls you'd expect to find in the 13th century. So I ran a temporal analysis on the paper, and the time signature of the material indicates it's from 2029. 2029? But then this diagram must have been drawn by Amon, so he's the one who ordered the princess's kidnapping. We should have known, Matthew. Not only is Amon arming the Mongolians, he's coaching the Chinese into the conflict. We must warn the Emperor. He needs to understand that both sides are being played against each other, which will have disastrous consequences. Thank you for seeing us, Your Majesty. We bring you grave tidings. You did me a great service revealing Shi Miyuan's deception. Please tell me your concerns. We discovered that Shi Miyuan wasn't working alone. A foreigner from a far-off land is manipulating both you and Ogadai Khan towards war. This man is supplying the Khan with powerful weapons, and he persuaded your first minister to abduct the Mongolian princess. Well, if that Mongolian brute wants a war, he'll get one. With all due respect, I don't think you understand. Someone's playing you and the Mongolians against each other. That's of no consequence. You've seen our arsenal. The Chinese will prevail. Well, if you're determined to fight, you cannot stand alone. Do you have any allies? Allies? I suppose so, but I wouldn't know who they are. Strategic affairs were Shi Miyuan's responsibility. Perhaps you'll find something of his on the cannon field. Very well, Your Majesty. We'll see what we can find. Matthew, all this tension has left me famished. Let's grab something to eat first. Oh well. This is madness, Matthew. The Emperor has confidence in his arsenal, but the Chinese will be defenseless against the Khan and his 18th century weapons. But since the Emperor is determined to fight, we must try to even the odds by finding allies to stand alongside the Chinese. I don't see how this broken painting... Gosh. Oh great, I gotta go through this. But if you think... Oh gosh, why did this thing have to pop up? Wait a minute, folks. So I apologize about that message. Hopefully it doesn't pop up again. Got it. Matthew, this is a portrait of the Emperor looking pretty chummy with someone who seems to be a Japanese shogun named Yoshinobu Gojo. According to the database, China was at peace with Japan during the Song dynasty. And although the Mongols launched 3 invasion attempts during the 13th century, Japan resisted Khan's army. Let's inform the Emperor we might have found an ally. Your Majesty, Matthew has found you a powerful ally. We believe Shogun Gojo from Japan could be convinced to stand alongside you against the Mongolians. I remember entertaining Shogun Gojo, wonderful wine, but I didn't care for the sushi. But you don't expect me to go to Japan, do you? That's too menial a task for the great Emperor of China. Not to mention there's an opera tonight. With your blessing, Your Majesty, we can meet with Shogun Gojo on your behalf. Very good. Then consider this a formal decree. Matthew shall speak with the authority of Emperor Lizong to recruit Japan as an ally against the Mongolian army. And you mustn't go empty-handed. Please take this to fund your journey. I must say, Matthew, creating an authentic Chinese opera gown has been a career highlight. Working with original Chinese materials and genuine traditional patterns is a rare opportunity. And I'm sure you'll agree, the result is magnificent. Now let's join Lian Wei and see how she's done with the princess's makeup. You are indeed an expert tailor, Orlando. The opera gown you've created is wonderful. As is your makeup job. I hardly recognize the princess. If I'd known I'd be receiving a makeover, I would have tried to be kidnapped long ago. Now comes the tricky part, convincing that guard you're not his prisoner. Are you up for the challenge, princess? Don't you worry, I'll have that guard wrapped around my little finger. Okay, let's fool him. Thank you for allowing us to visit the princess, sir, but it's time the four of us got going. That's quite alright. Wait, four of you? There weren't two opera singers when you came in, were there? Of course there were. Don't you recognize the star of tonight's opera, The Legend of Wen Long? Oh, right. I thought you looked familiar. I'm your biggest fan. And I'm always grateful to meet my supporters. But we must be going. Do look after the princess. Yes, of course. Your wish is my command. Works like a charm. Well done, Matthew. I must say, that was exhilarating. Thank you so much for rescuing me. I cannot wait until I'm home in Karakorum. Before we depart, Princess Torgoljin, we must make travel preparations. You'll be safe at the Opera House. We will meet you there soon. The Emperor's insistence on fighting the Mongolians is madness, Matthew. The Chinese don't stand a chance against Ogadai Khan and his 18th century weapons. I'm hoping we can still find a peaceful resolution, but for now our best bet is to gather allies to support the Chinese. But how will involving more people in a conflict prevent bloodshed? By evening the odds, we can hopefully convince the Khan to stand down. That's why convincing Shogun Gojo in Japan to stand alongside Emperor Lizong is so important. But if we're traveling to Japan, how will we get Princess Torgoljin back to Mongolia? Maybe we could ask Santiago Sanchez to take the princess back to Mongolia. An explorer like him might relish the opportunity to escort a royal to the Khan himself. You might be right. Let's fetch Princess Torgoljin and speak with Santiago Sanchez. Senor Sanchez, we were wondering if we might ask you a favor. Claro, of course. You have exonerated me from suspicion of murder not once, but twice. What can I do for you, Matthew? Allow us to introduce you to Princess Torgoljin, the daughter of Ogadai Khan. We request that you escort the princess home to her father. But of course, I'm great friends with the Khan. It's with his blessing that I travel unhindered throughout Asia. What? You're farming me off to this Spaniard? Please Please, my lady, you could do far worse than to travel in the company of Santiago Sanchez. I can regale you with stories of my adventures around the world. Adventures? Well, I suppose that could be interesting. Thank you for everything you've done, Matthew. I will speak of you to my father in the highest regard. Rest assured, Matthew, Torgoljan is in safe hands. Come, my princess, let us away. Just in time, Matthew. We're about to get our first update from Kai and Penelope. Hey, Matthew, are we glad to see you? We're doing all right, camped out near the Great Wall with Ogadai's army. We're glad you're safe. You'll be happy to know we've rescued Princess Torgoljan and Santiago Sanchez is escorting her back to Mongolia. As for the rest of us, we're heading to Japan to convince the Shogun to stand alongside the Emperor. If China's going to war, they'll need all the allies they can get. You don't know the half of it, Matthew. In addition to 18th century guns, Amon and his medieval Egyptians are building high-caliber cannons and catapults. Then our mission in Japan must succeed if we're to stop Amon's plans to destroy the Chinese Empire. You mustn't lose hope. Getting his daughter back might be enough to convince Ogadai Khan to stand down. There may still be a chance for peace. You're right, but time is of the essence. Stay safe, guys. We'll speak to you again soon. For now, Matthew, let's get moving. We're heading to Japan. Wondering if the next case is open already, but we'll see. May not be open until Thursday, but we will see. Boy, that might be the ally. September 26th, okay? So the next case is not out yet. Should be 31 cases, unless there's another time period that we haven't seen yet. Anyway, anyway, we'll see what happens. So for now, I'm going to see you guys on September 26th. So for now, this is Matthew. I'll see you soon.